There we go. All right. Today, we are going to be talking about using Snacksized continuing education offerings to increase engagement and enrollment. The world has changed all around us, especially as of late, and challenges us to grab the attention of our members and clients who are connected online. This new world of always-on content is both a challenge to your existing offerings and an opportunity. By offering snack-size education, you can increase engagement, increase enrollment for your other offerings, including your conference, and show your members that your association has their experience top of mind when you design your courses. Joining us once again is Kiki, the host of Association Chat and a leader in the association industry and online community engagement promoter for over 15 years. As the host of Association Chat, an online community, magazine, and media platform, Kiki's content reaches over 70,000 individuals in the association and events arena monthly. If you aren't following Kiki and Association Chat on Facebook, I encourage you to do so. And now, let's get started. Kiki?
All right, thanks so much for having me. And are we all excited to be on another Zoom call? Okay, so I know, it's really thrilling. How many of you think a 1 hour period of time is the best time for learning ever? It's just the best, no matter what. Go ahead and type. I know that a lot of you are just like raring to go. Type into the comments in the chat and tell me how many of you think that an hour is a good long period of time for us for learning. Anybody? Anyone? So perfect. Agree. Okay. Well, what if I told you? I see all of the agree. It might be great for us today. All right. Let's hope so. That's why we're all here. But yes, Jennifer, less can be more. We're talking about snack size learning today. And so even though today we're going to be talking about things, we have this hour so that we can answer questions and all kinds of stuff like that. I want you to think about what learning is, and if we always have to be presenting it in the same way, the same format all the time. There are an awful lot of options, and right now, I mean, when we planned on talking about this, when this was set up and I was going to meet all of you, many of you, maybe not all of you, in person, this was set up to be a discussion where I'm sharing information about bite-sized learning, snack-sized learning. Micro-learning has always been important, but right now, when we are zoomed out, my friends, right now is the best time to be learning about this, because what will break through? What is going to be the thing that people stick with, especially if they really do need to learn whatever it is that you're trying to teach them? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I see that Amy said, or nap-size learning for those staying at home with babes. Yes, that is so true. Nap-size learning. We might do that one next time. And if you have to sneak off and take a nap, that could be nap-size learning too. But I hope you don't, and I'm glad that you're here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can talk through some of these talking points. And I might ask you periodically to weigh in on some things. And if you have questions, I encourage you to raise your hand along the way too, because I do want this to be something where I can answer your questions and we can have sort of a discussion as we go along. All right. These are strange times for sure. Has anybody heard that it's just business as usual? If so, I'd like to know what world you're living in, because my world is very different right now. So snack size continuing education for associations is very, very important, because no matter who you are, no matter what organization, actually it's not even just for associations, it's for anyone. We have so many different types of content that are provided to us, different ways to get information, different ways to get education, that it's very easy to think that someone's already done it the best way before we have. A lot of times we don't take the time, or maybe we don't have the time, to break down what learning really means and to think about the best way to provide new types of learning experiences to our members and to those whom we're trying to reach. And so obviously we're on Zoom, we're using Zoom. Zoom's an awesome platform, but it's not the only platform. It's not the only option for learning. So, a little bit of background about me and why I'm talking to you about this today. I'm a senior consultant for Tecker. Yes, I'm the CEO, sort of host of Association Chat, and you've heard all about that. I do hope you join. And I'm passionate about community building, continuing education, and trust. And trust plays a big part. If you heard my keynote about trust and building community, then you understand that when we are in any kind of communication, in any kind of exchange, we are always building trust, whether we mean to or not. That is part of what we're all really trying to do when we're doing any kind of communication exchange and building any kind of relationship. So it's very important for us to be thinking about that when we are communicating and providing education, especially because when we tell people, when we tell our members that we want to help them to learn something, or we're offering a quality piece of content to them where they can learn, whether we deliver on that or not, they're going to judge us against that. They're going to say, did they deliver on that promise? And it's very, very important that we are mindful of that with all of our communications, whether it's an email, a newsletter, or yes, continuing education. Now, while I'm talking, I want to go ahead and give you the Twitter information so that if you want to share the glorious information and takeaways that you're getting, and I hope you get some, I hope that you will use this information. At Empire State SAE is the Twitter handle for SA, and I hope that you use it. I hope I got that right, Vanessa. Did I? Yes? Yes, I copied and pasted it, so if I didn't, I don't know what to say. And then at Kiki L'Italien. It's like lit alien if you're trying to remember how to spell it. The hashtags Webinar Wednesday and yes, Ass in Chat, which is a really funny hashtag, but definitely memorable. Yes. So if you're not nap-sized learning right now, moving right along, we're going to talk about what's changed, why it's really important to think about your snack-sized learning today, what snack-sized education is anyway, and of course, the importance of engagement and how you can build engagement into your snack-sized learning. I'm also going to be sharing along the way examples of different types of platforms and tools that provide snack-sized learning and what works and doesn't work with them. So what's changed? Well, even before our current situation, there is so much that's changed in the world that it really is, I think, worth our time to just slow down and think a little bit about what's changed within the past even 10 years, okay? So everyone has their mobile devices. We are so fortunate that right now, in the midst of a pandemic, that even though it's really hard for people to continue to work. A lot of people are working on the front lines. They don't have the ability to work from home. But I mean, if this happened at any other time in history, would so many people in the workforce be able to work from home as they are right now? We're really fortunate that technology has gotten us to this point and that it is where it is. And certainly a lot of us have seen our screen times, if you've been tracking that from the beginning of the year. I had said I thought I was being really productive, and I set my screen time on my phone and all my devices to say you've spent too much time on your phone or you've spent too much time on social media. And I blew right past those as soon as we all started having to stay from home. My daughter was home, my husband was working from home, and all of that. But even before that, you know, we live by our devices, and that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. What's interesting about that is that no matter where your members happen to be, most likely they have access to some kind of device. They have some kind they information they can Google. They can, even my mother, who is 80 years old and living in Southwest Missouri, in a place where they can't even really get internet still, which there are still places like that. she is able on her phone to Google anything. And it's kind of wild that we're living in a world where that's possible. Our members also have the ability to network with peers without getting up from their chair. But sometimes we need to get up from our chairs. I'm sure you might be feeling a little bit of that right now, right? I mean, oh, how many times have you gotten up today when you've had these calls? Have you been on back-to-back meetings and, logging in? You're best friends with Zoom now. And how many times do you have to remind yourself, yeah, it's a good time to get up from this seat and kind of move around? It's really important for us to remember that even when we do go back into the workplace and we are able to go back into the world and move about freely, that these devices are kind of tethered to us all the time. So being mindful of that and the way that people build education into their lives, and the way that we usually are very mobile. Right now we're not so much. We're stuck at home, but I have a feeling that when we get the chance to be free, a lot of us are going to be moving around quite a bit, at least outside of our homes, where we can circulate a tad. Here's another thing to remember, and this came from the Harvard Business Review. Social networks now provide easy, and I hate it when people read, but if you're just listening to this and you don't want to read it, that's what this is. It's a little story time. Social networks now provide easy and convenient ways for industry members to find each other and network. And the proliferation of online content has led to vast and often free access to the types of information, insights, and training that professionals used to be able to access only through association membership and industry conferences. Okay, so that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because this is your fourth today, Janine said. Oh my gosh, you have me beat. This is not my fourth. This is not my fourth Zoom today. I feel for you, my friend. But it's interesting because our conferences, this issue with not being able to go to them, I think that this is an opportunity for us to think about the worst case scenario, which is, what if we couldn't depend on those conferences to happen? How would we make that learning happen, right? How would we get that education out? What are some alternatives? Because certainly we have all of these different ways to connect. And for years, in the association space, that's been the concern. In the very beginning of social media, some of you who were around might remember that the argument was that hybrid meetings would cannibalize the in-person meetings. And now we've seen throughout time, over 10 years since all of the social media tools came out and everything, that rather than cannibalizing, it just offers more opportunity for people who are not able to travel and be there in person to be able to engage with your content and learning in a different way. Well, now we've all been forced to figure out, what does this mean for us? Because we don't really have the option to congregate in the same way. So this discussion today has a new kind of relevance to us than it did even if I would have given this when we were in person and we met at TripleM, was that a month ago that we were going to meet? Anyway, a few weeks ago. So, let's all hope that meetings do not go away. It's so true, because people will always want to meet. People will always want to get to be in person. I do think that things are going to be a little bit different in the future, where we're going to be thinking about, and this is of course conjecture, but I think people are going to be thinking about them in a different way, because now that we are learning new ways to do things, I think we're going to be very joyous and celebrate intensely when we're able to get together and really appreciate it. So those in-person meetings might be really, really big, but I do think that as we are easing into that, depending on how long all of this goes on, and depending on how comfortable or uncomfortable people are, we might be looking at these regional meetings and keeping them so that we are focused on that building relationships when we can get together. But we always want to move to that in-person experience, don't we? It doesn't mean we don't want to think about what's going on online. And especially at times like this, bite-sized learning is the perfect way to be able to roll things out and keep people's attention when the traditional webinar and all of that it's just noisy. There's so much out there that's like that. Trust is in crisis. I mean, we are really seeing that now. Trust is in dramatic decline in media, business, government, even nonprofit organizations or NGOs around the world that have higher levels of trust. It's still hardly 50%, which trust is in decline overall. And a lot of us aren't trusting the institutions that have existed for years. That said, if anyone's going to trust anyone, right, it's going to be those of us, especially associations, those of us with organizations that are providing trusted resources, quality resources that they believe have been vetted and that they can trust and believe that they're going to be quality and not just something that is, given to you so that something can be sold or that there's some sort of nefarious purpose underneath. So this is a really good time to be a trusted entity. It's a really good time to be an association if you can get over the panic of other stuff that's going on concerning our conferences. If we look at what associations are really here to do, and that's bring people together to try to do something, then this is a really great opportunity to be that leader in this space and to be providing these high quality education sources and information in a way that people can trust. So it's good to be there for your people, and this is a really great time to really build that loyalty and show people why they belong. You can't coast on your .org anymore. The .org and your URL and your domain doesn't mean that people are necessarily going to trust in you anymore. And so you need to be thinking past that and be proving to people, proactively proving to people and your members why they should believe in you. And this says, I wish this were fake news. Yeah. So we have had a lot of crazy news that's going on in this space. And so people are in an unusual psychological space right now. That means that right now, the way that you're communicating and in showing your authenticity and in showing your thoughtfulness and in showing reasonable reasoning and showing rationality and showing that you are thinking through things in a calm, collected manner is going to help people feel reassured, and it's going to help people feel safe. So that doesn't mean that we don't try to be innovative. People trust people. They don't necessarily trust organizations all the time. So this is a really good time for your people who are trusted voices in your industry, trusted voices in your association, to be showing up and to be maybe giving their reflections or sharing what it is that they're experiencing. I think this is a really great opportunity for some people to take a leadership role. Now, what does all of this have to do with Snacksized learning? I know you're questioning me. Don't question me. I'm going to tell you in just a second. Okay. So, associations that don't start changing to match this new reality are going to decline. It's already started. 42% of individuals left a brand or company as a customer within the past year because they lost trust in it. Decreasing trust has been directly tied to decreasing revenue. Trust has become material. I say this for anyone who says that trust does not directly, impact the bottom line. It actually does. And so this is an oldie but goodie, and I just shared this out again. I wrote this in January of 2018 for Meetings Today magazine, but it's what fake news can teach you about event marketing. And there is a way to design for trust. What do you need to do to be able to communicate trust to your members when you are thinking about your online events, your virtual events, any kind of experience that you're trying to offer your members. You want to be thinking about that. Now, human behavior is adapting to these changes. So we have this new behavior that is happening in our language, like ghosting. How many of you know what ghosting is? Like, can you believe that this is a word? Yes? Have you been ghosted? Have you experienced this? Ghosting, when somebody just sort of disappears and you're like, did they die? What happened? They're not responding to my texts, my emails, my messages. I don't know what happened. And I mean, this happens professionally. It's happened. I was talking to a good friend of mine who worked for a marketing company, and they were talking with a candidate. This was a job that paid over $100,000, so six-figure job, talking with a great candidate. They were ready to hire this person. And something happened. I don't know what. They don't know what. She just kind of disappeared. They have evidence from looking online that she is still alive, but she just wouldn't respond to any emails. And so it's kind of crazy that we have these words like ghosting, and this is an experience that has even started happening in the workplace. We are also adapting to the ability to ask the air for information, and the air responds. Alexa, what's the weather today?
Currently in Alexandria.
So Alexa, stop. So we are able to do that, and suddenly I'm getting answers that I never was able to get before. It's not just playing music as I'm walking along. I'm now like talking to God. I don't know. And then we want access to information in our preferred mode, and we want it immediately. I still remember when I was a kid and I had to look into encyclopedias and stuff to get like definitions and definitions from dictionaries, but encyclopedias for more information, right? Like I just need to know more about zebras or something. And now we have Google. Now we have this endless amount. I can learn everything from how to breed zebras to like where to go and visit them, to a zebra fan club. I mean, there's like no end. So human behavior is adapting to all of this. And when you have that ability to be able to access that kind of information, you are not satisfied to have things be boring and just presented to you in this staid, old, dried out fashion. You need things that are going to arrive to you and entertain your brain and light up that part of your brain that says, yes, I need to know this information and I want to know this information. All right. Oh, I'm so sorry. How is the weather at your house? Yes. So I see I set off everyone's Alexas. Well, at least you don't feel like you're alone. So here's a question I want you to answer in the chat. What is not working for you in online learning right now? Go ahead and tell me, this is our sharing moment. What is not working for you in online learning right now? And I'm sure you all have lots of examples to give, because there is an endless amount of learning, free learning, that you can be a part of right now. So now I'm going to check out the chat to see what you say. Children interrupting. Yes, that's definitely not working. Oversaturation, too many learning options. That might be a good problem. Yes. Yes. Anything else? Come on, don't be shy. Don't be shy. I love seeing you type in. I really do. I'm kind of used. Computer lag glitches. Yeah, so the technology isn't always making it simple. Too many platforms, for sure. Like if you've had to jump from Zoom to Skype for business to GoToMeeting, how many of you have been playing that little game of roulette? That's no fun. And by the way, if you're not aware, make sure you close out of each one of those platforms as you're jumping from one to the other, because it will confuse your external devices so that your sound and your camera will be confused and not always work if you still have the other one open. All right, a bit more friendly for smartphones or on the go. Not knowing what can actually be taught and retained online versus what can. And too many options. Yes. And one-way communication. Yes. If I could, actually I can ding, ding, ding. That is fantastic. I love that. Gold star to you. Okay, so these are really great responses. I think those plus some, right? There are so many different ways where online learning can go wrong. I don't think the people I can see in your little windows right now don't seem as impressed by the fact that I have a bell over here ready to go as you should be. I don't know. I don't know about you. All right. So what's Snacksized? Snacksized is one idea. It's one idea. So what that means is, instead of me trying to tell you everything about bite-sized learning or snack-sized learning right now, snack-sized is the idea that I'm going to present to you one idea and one idea only that will come through. You will understand it clearly so that you're able to remember it and even explain it to a friend. That is the concept. Snacksized is taking, you can take complex ideas and bring it down into little idea segments. So what would it look like if you broke a lot of these bigger topics into snack size portions? This is something you should be thinking about for any of the content. If you've produced webinars in the past, or you have, you know, your online courses and things like that, what can be broken down into idea by idea by idea? Because you can actually present snack-sized learning and one idea at a time as a series, and in that way be able to capture people's attention and get more retention, actually, for people to finish a series of learning than just online courses in general. And so there are some statistics and facts to back that up that were presented by LinkedIn and a company called Arist. And I have a white paper that I can share with you. I think it's listed in the resources at the end. But it will show that if you're able to present snack-sized learning or learning in one idea segments, you can capture people's attention and ensure that there's more course completion and completion of your online training. So is everything good for snack-sized learning? No, it's not. You might have heard about this as micro-learning, bite-sized, short-form learning, or blended learning. Each one of these is sort of a nuanced, different version of the same idea. It's this idea of breaking things into smaller chunks and presenting it in smaller chunks. But they do have nuances. They're not exactly all equal. 8 out of 10 professionals, learning and development professionals, favor micro-learning because their learners prefer it. And so the reason learners prefer it, it turns out, if you click into that, and then there's a study that is connected if you go to that infographic. If you actually look into that, what you'll discover is that it's because you can consume it in one sitting. So if you think about some of the reasons that different types of content on YouTube and stuff like that, that they're consumed more readily, or even in blog posts, why articles that are shorter are easier for people to actually get through. It's because we have just limited chunks of time. And if we know that we can do something and be productive in that limited amount of time, we'll try to do it. But if something's longer, we have to then work our agenda or work our schedules around that thing. And so it becomes a little bit more difficult to work in that learning. So here are some snack-sized learning pro tips. First of all, are there any questions so far? I know that you feel comfortable using the chat feature, so I feel like you would probably type them in if you had them, but I do want to stop and make sure that you have a chance to ask any questions so far. I'll check in. We good? All right, I think we're good. All right. And you can always give me a thumbs up too. If it's like, no, I'm good, Kiki, keep going. All right. Because I'm looking at you guys. All right, so here are, I'm going to run through each one of these, but here are the tips I'm going to cover. Short, concise, multimedia, multi-platform, and number 5 is the mystery. And we'll talk about the mystery when we get there. What is that pro tip? All right, we'll find out. Do you have guesses? If you have guesses on number 5, let me know. And you can guess along the way. All right, number 1 is to keep it short. What does snack-sized learning look like? Snack-sized learning actually looks like learning in stretches of 3 to 7 minutes. That's not very long if you think about it. Why 3 to 7 minutes? That's what the brain holds on to. We get distracted in other cases. And it's also 3 to 7 minutes. You can pretty much find the time to focus on anything for 3 to 7 minutes. That matches the working memory capacity and attention spans of humans. We know that our attention spans are even, shorter than that. We've really got seconds. But if you're intent on learning something, we can get your attention for 3 to 7 minutes and then have to shake things up. And normally when I'm in person, I like to walk around and I like to talk about things and I like to, have a lot of motion and I like to interact, go out and I ask you questions directly because movement can keep the brain engaged, and that movement when you're online is great. This, by the way, is not ideal because this is static. You're looking at a screen. I'm over here and I'm kind of moving, but if you're just looking at the screen, you're seeing this expanse. It's not doing anything too exciting. And unless you're really focused, yeah, Janine says, squirrel. Yes, totally. Unless you're completely focused, your mind's going to wander. And that is just the way we're built, Now, what are some options? What are some bite-sized learning, different types of options that work? And one thing I didn't share with you before about me, and that's not really written in my bio, is that I have developed online courses for a number of different, over the years, for a number of different platforms and companies, and along with teaching in person. And so I've seen how online learning has changed from the beginning years ago to what they're asking me to produce now. So they're learning what people choose, what learners prefer, and learners are learning how they prefer to learn. So it's an interesting time as technology is developing. And so one of those tools that I found, and entertaining. Yeah, well, you want things to be entertaining, and I love that choice. Oh, keep guessing, you guys, keep guessing. And I'm not going to tell you if you're right or wrong, by the way, so until we get to number 5. Arist is a great tool for creating text-based learning. What do I mean by text-based learning? You can actually take courses on arist.co and go visit arist.co, and they've got some great stuff set up for nonprofits, and you can they have tutorials. It's super, super easy to work with them. I ended up interviewing the co-CEOs who are very young but very smart about this, and they were actually invited to present on arist.co at South by Southwest, and then South by Southwest was no more. So I'm really hoping that they get a chance to have their day in the sun with South by Southwest. That said, you can go on and see the amazing tool that they've created. They have won awards for being the most innovative technology tool created in 2019. and that was a soft launch that they did in 2019. And they're trying to get as many different courses up and running. Let me describe to you what Course by Text is. You are able to receive a course by text, but these are bite-sized, truly bite-sized pieces of learning that you're able to take in on your phone. So if you think about, and I'll just pull up my phone as an example, if you think about what that would look like, it's literally just being able to decide at a certain time every day, you want to be reminded to take your course. You receive a text message, you read that piece of your course, and that's, you have a chance to respond with your answers or give feedback, and that's your study for the day. Is it possible to learn big things in these snack-sized chunks? Yes, it is, and it's actually very addictive, because if you think about, if you do it every day at the same time, what does that do? Well, what we've learned over time about the brain is that you're teaching your brain to expect that habit. You're building a habit to expect that thing at the same time every day. And so I really enjoyed my experience. You can take some free courses if you go to arist.co. Arist, by the way, is short for Aristotle. Very clever. And they also have the ability to white label, and you can create your own courses on there. So I think that they have free options for nonprofits, and they have for white labeling for other companies. I think that they have a very inexpensive option, but the founders are working with all kinds of people, and they have a goal of creating 1 million different courses by the end of 2020. So you should definitely reach out and see what they have to say about that. It's also considered, what is white labeling? So instead of it saying that it's by Arist, it would be your branding. So it would be like it's coming from your organization. That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So I wanted to show you an example of this, somebody who had kind of the same idea, but for life school, life coaching. And Live It Up was created by Radha Agarwal. Both, by the way, I've interviewed all of the people who created this stuff. So if you want to go and hear from the co-CEOs of Arist, there's on the podcast, there's an interview with them where they talk more in detail about that. I interviewed Radha Agarwal and her sister, Mickey Agarwal. You might be familiar with Mickey because she owns Tushy. She founded Tushy.com, the bidet company that is like their TechCrunch just published a big thing yesterday about their how well that they're doing, that people can't find toilet paper, so they're exploring the new world of bidets. So anyway, Mickey created Tushy, and her sister Radha, her twin sister Radha, created something called Daybreaker, which are these live in-person events that happen first thing in the morning. They're like raves, but with green juice, not alcohol, and just a fascinating event experience that they have then tried to transition into a virtual experience, and they're having success with it. So that's an interesting story. All right. Yes, and Vanessa has the link up there for what toilet paper and bidets have to teach association leaders. Yeah, when I saw TechCrunch had done a story on that, I thought, I've actually talked to Mickey Agarwal about bidets for association chat, and it's amazing that that is now relevant again. Examples and formats. So you've got your online courses, you've got courses through text, you've got virtual conferences. Now, the thing about why you want to know about these different options is because not everybody can do all of them, right? Some of us learn one way better than another. Virtual conferences can be simple or complicated. There are so many different platforms to choose from. And when we're talking about snack-sized learning, virtual conferences can get very complex, and as far as the way that you offer this, you want to build in your snack-sized learning into those virtual conferences if they're really large. You know, sometimes Virtual conferences, a lot of people are trying to simplify them right now just so that they can get them done and then improve upon them if they have to. Courses through text, we talked a little bit about that. It is the ideal sort of snack-sized content, but not everybody feels comfortable on their phones, although with learning on their phones and maybe responding on their phones. That said, from my own experience, and it is kind of a new thing, I would say that you learn very quickly. And the one thing I'll say that I enjoyed the most about it was the habit that it built. I wanted immediately to sign up for another course after I did one. I think that anybody would want that kind of result if you were providing courses to members. The one thing I didn't like about it is the course that I signed up for, which was a test course. It was on architectural history. Great course. I loved giving my answers back. But because it was a test course, there wasn't a professor or faculty member or somebody on the other side who was responding or just letting me know that it was being read. And I think that if there were a community component or somebody who was responding to it, which you do have the ability to do that if you create your own course, I would have enjoyed it even more. And the online courses. Now, many of us are familiar with online courses as they exist in MOOCs, which is the massive online, I'm trying to remember what it stands for, MOOC. We have Coursera. We have, well, let me go give you some examples. We have Masterclass. We have Coursera. We have Arist. We have Duolingo as an app that gives you options. Creative Live, which is an online webinars and learning. They also offer some courses, but mostly it's done in video. And then we have TED Talks, which are a different type of micro learning, but it's not really as interactive, right? So how many of you have signed up for one or more of these? Type into the chat which of these you've experienced. TED, yeah, for sure. If you haven't seen a TED Talk by now, man, yes. Anybody trying to learn a new language through Duolingo? Yeah, I was gonna say, yes. LinkedIn Learning, yes. LinkedIn Learning is fantastic. I feel like not as many people have explored that as maybe you should. Masterclass. I'm a huge online course fan. I think part of it is because I helped develop them, but I love learning. Yep, Udacity. And Udemy, yes. So some really good ones here. And you know, what are the things that you liked about your online courses? And I'm going to say about your online courses that you've taken so far. What are the things that you liked about that? And just really quickly, be nimble with your fingers and type just as quickly as you can. Available whenever, fit your schedule. Short and engaging. Learn at your own pace. The score and competitive side with Duolingo. Interesting, yes. You can rewind the presenter. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's adaptable. It's something that is flexible. You can make it fit into what you're doing. Learn at your own pace. Engaging. It can be engaging. And I've seen where sometimes the online platforms have chosen to take out some of that engagement piece and to their detriment. So it's interesting. So when we're creating, what we can learn from this is that the things that we really love about our online courses and online learning that we have is that it is something where we can stop, we can rewind, it's flexible. Several of you mentioned, or a couple of you mentioned, this competitive side or the ability to engage, right? And that engagement and that feeling that you're getting some kind of feedback is so important, and it's not built in to a lot of our online snack size learning. I bring that up because I think that it's so important for us to think about the power that just a little bit of engagement has, or just a little bit of scoring has, because there is undoubtedly that thing within us that drives us to see, well, how are we doing compared to others? You know, I don't even like to think of myself as particularly competitive, but I do. So Grammarly is a tool that I use, and when I get my score, occasionally they'll just update me with a score about how many unique words I use. And I like that it's high, you know, like I like to know that it's high. Compared to whom? I don't know. It's compared to whoever else is using it. And I don't even know how accurate it is, but there's something in me, I have to admit it, that makes me, and there's a little piece of me that knows that when I'm composing things, I know that. So you try a little bit harder. I love Grammarly too. I get way too caught up on getting to a perfect score sometimes. Yes, me too. Yeah, and then you have to remind yourself that a little imperfection is good, right? It's good to be human. So here's some snapshots, and I did this from my phone so that you can see what the experience is like on your mobile device. This is important because while we're all inside right now, we're not always going to be inside. And even if we are inside, if we have to change rooms, maybe some of us with small children, we're going in. And I remember when my daughter, she's 12 now, but when my daughter was little, I remember having to hold on to her and trying to scroll, and you're like desperately trying to thumb your responses to emails and just thinking like, oh my gosh, when does it get better? And so the fact that you're able to access this learning no matter where you are or what you're doing is so, so critical. And it also means that the easier it is for you to access it from anywhere, the more likely it is that you will access it, right? And you will complete it. So with my Coursera, I'm a mentor. I serve as, and they're changing their mentor program now, but I've been a mentor on their SEO program and on their entrepreneurship program. And the things that I loved about going into these different types of classes is they have how much further you've got to go in these different classes that you take. So for instance, and this was a snapshot that I took, last year. So it was a screenshot from last year. It said I had one assignment due for week 1 and 1 hour and 15 minutes to go in week 1. And that was for the business school course that I was taking from brand to image. For this other School of Business course, it was digital transformations, and I had a lot further to go. I had 5 hours and 57 minutes to go for week 1. And I really love the fact that you could go to a dashboard and see where you were. You could quickly see how much further do I have to go. For a lot of articles right now, you'll notice that they have, this is a 4-minute read, right? You want to know how long is this article. And so, before you commit to reading it. And similar to that, Coursera has that great dashboard that you can access. For Masterclass, I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan. I don't know if any of you love Neil Gaiman like I do, but a big fan of his graphic novels and of all of his writing, really. And so I was taking his writing class. And the thing that I really liked about the way that Masterclass is set up is they have these beautiful videos set up, but look, this is Neil Gaiman. He is the master of his craft. And yet, this lesson how long was he talking on this lesson? 7 minutes and 53 seconds. And that's Neil Gaiman, right? Even Neil Gaiman, they're saying even with the people who are best at their craft, we're only going to have them talking for like 6 to 10 minutes for a lesson. That should tell you something. If you get Neil Gaiman in a room to teach you about writing and they're still cutting it down, there's a reason. There's a reason. These are done extremely well, by the way. I really love Masterclass. So number 2, keep it concise. You want to keep it short, you want to keep it concise. So when I worked for Media Bistro, right, creating courses for them, they started out where I would create these courses. It took me so long because I was teaching about like different things like Facebook and Facebook marketing. And of course, Facebook would change things. I'd have to go through and update everything. But each lesson that I recorded on video was like an hour long. Too long. It took me forever. And they changed it. Year after year, they've come back and they've gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. And now they don't want anything longer than 10 minutes. And I think that it's because they have seen the completion rates go up when you keep these videos shorter. So one idea, micro learning, snack size learning, one idea. Okay, so number 3 and 4, I combined it to save time. Multimedia and multi-platform. If you can, with your learning, think about where you can have multimedia and multi-platform. What does that mean? Multimedia, your video, audio, animation, that could be moving infographics, that could be just audio, you know, having the MP3 and like maybe a good graphic there. It could be video, all kinds of different things. If you're able to get something across in multiple ways, so maybe you have a checklist, a handout, a worksheet, and you have, you know, your video or your audio to go along with it, you're going to touch on different parts of the brain, and that learning is going to be accessed in different ways. It's really the ideal way for a learner to take information in. And multi-platform. You want to look at different types of platforms. So for instance, I'm able to check out Masterclass on my desktop computer, on my phone, on my different types of devices. Could I access that in a different way somewhere else? Not really, but I like that I'm able to have a different experience. If I want to interact in a different sort of way, I can do more if I'm doing it from my laptop or my desktop versus something smaller like my phone. Okay, so your video, audio, animation created and shared on multiple platforms. I also think it's good that you can take tiny snippets of even your tiny snack size learning and share so that people see a glimpse of what that looks like, so they get a taste and they understand what it is that you're trying to offer. This is something to keep in mind. All of your members, staff, and stakeholders are being trained to be content creators and to watch and react to each other's content. We're doing this every day, naturally, on our social media, on everything. And so is it possible that you already have some really great content creators that are on staff or in your membership right now that are not being tapped to produce some of this content? You might want to consider ways that you can bring in more voices and more faces. All right. So Gather Voices is one of those softwares. To be honest, I thought I'd taken this slide out, so you can check them out if you want to. Gather Voices is a great tool. I'll go back just so you can see a little bit about it. It's software that automates the creation, management, and the publishing of videos that are made on Gather Voices. So they make it easier, and that's kind of their thing. There are several different types of solutions that do that. And at some point I had this as a longer sort of presentation. So what about number 5? Did anybody vote? I know that I saw someone guess entertaining. And I have to say that it's don't be boring. Just don't be boring. Don't be boring. Boring is terrible. We're so sick of the same old stuff. It's hard even if you like what you're learning. It's hard if it's being presented in a boring way. You're just not going to be able to hold on to everyone's attention. It's the way that it is. And so short, concise, multimedia, multi-platform, and don't be boring. What does that mean? Well, with everything being scripted and uptight and monotonous sort of presentation. Look, a lot of us are living in this, especially right now, we're living in this world where if we pretend like everything is normal all the time, it's just a lie. We're living in a time, and not just right now because of our present situation, but always, where this unbelievable amount of technological like advancement is happening, right? We're able to talk to people all over the face of this globe using a little tiny device. It's like magic. It's crazy. There's no excuse in the times that we're living in right now that something be boring. If I presented to you and I read to you like this, that bite-sized learning, snack-sized learning, it's 5 to 7 minutes long. We try to, it's terrible. There's no reason to be that way. No more excuses. So who cares? You want to engage. This is how you do it. You want to customize to your members' needs. You want to provide something that's on demand and something that's informal. And Vanessa and everyone can make these slides available to you afterwards. So if you want to check and click on the links and all the resources, there's resources at the end that you can check out. You want to use the people who you have access to within your membership when possible. The reason why it's great to hire in outside experts to come in and give presentations, but as you know, like sometimes the most interesting voices are found within your membership. So bring in the outside voices when it makes sense, but also don't forget that you have those hidden gems that are waiting. They don't have to be perfect. You know, sometimes, yes, and Vanessa says she'll share the slides with all the attendees. I knew that. Vanessa's the best. And you also want to be able to communicate authentically. So that means that you can be informal. The person doesn't have to have the perfect equipment and, you know, the perfect presence and say everything scripted. Sometimes it's okay to get that authentic voice. If they're interesting and they're qualified, that's the best, you know. Snack-sized engagement pro tips. And then I want to hear from you, okay? So here are the pro tips. Feedback, reward, community, integrate in-person and the live component, and then challenges and collaborations to bring in new learners. So what am I talking about with that? And I want to keep an eye on my time. Oh, I'm right at 2:30. Okay. So feedback and reward, like we were talking about before, I want you to think about the feedback and reward in what was working with all these online apps that you like, the online learning modules that you like. It's that you get some kind of feedback. How am I doing? Where am I in this thing? How am I doing compared to other people, you know? And what about the reward? You know, is there some kind of badge that you get? Is there some kind of gold star that you get? Is there a little something that happens because you've stuck with it, right? That, you know, good job, pat on the back along the way. That actually, there's a behavioral reason in behavioral psychology. It's a very human behavioral reason that rewards work. So that's a very important part to build in. Community. How does your learning integrate into the community at large? You want to ask yourself that question, just because the greater engagement you have, the more likely people are going to enjoy it, and the more likely people are going to come back. Okay, and integrate in-person and live component. So if you have, say, live events that are hybrid events, and you have your in-person events that are happening, how can you use your micro-learning or your snack-sized learning and integrate this in-person or live component? What that usually ends up meaning is that I've seen it with Coursera groups when people were interacting who were studying at the same time, if you're studying for a certification type of thing. people would have meetups, and they would start as virtual meetups if they were regionally in the same spot. And then a lot of times those would move into let's get together and grab pizza and beer and stuff like that. And so these are things that can happen if you're bringing in through certain groups of people at the same time. You're working with a certain group, like a class or something. Challenges and collaborations to bring in new learners. So offer challenges. Say, all right, go out, and if you bring in 5 new learners to be a part of this, your next course is going to be free, or collaborations. Let's talk about who we can connect with so that we can build out what we're doing. Maker groups do this really well. Collaborations with maker groups so that they're getting together to work on a particular project, and they bring outside resources or other types of groups in to do a collaboration, and that makes it much bigger than it was before. So there are new kinds of ways to work when you're thinking about your snack-sized learning. That could be a whole session by itself, but this is a great day and time for collaborations in general, because a lot of times when things are very difficult, that's when finding partners, finding new ways to collaborate makes a lot of sense, when at other times you might be more competitive with each other. All right, any questions? What are you thinking? Oh, I wish I could talk to you guys. If we were in the same room, I would just be going and talking to you directly. Do I need to talk to Alexa? I won't say it out loud. I call her Lexi, so I don't turn her on here. But do I need to talk about Lexi? So what do you think? Give me some feedback right now about what you've learned about snack-sized learning. Have you learned some things that you can take away? Are you thinking about your learning a little bit differently in what you're providing to your members? So I think we have a little bit of time to answer questions. Could you show the pro tips for snack-sized learning slide one more time? Sure. So let me go back. Okay. And I don't know if you're seeing my Zoom group chat over everything. Let me move it to the side just in case. So we've got short, concise, which short and concise sound like the same thing, but they're not the same thing. Short in length, concise in message. So you're really thinking one idea, right? But also short in the length of time that you're taking for people to be able to consume it. Multimedia, multi-platform, and not boring. Do you have any suggestions for membership that can be reluctant to engage with new methods and new tools? Yes, I actually do. And here's the thing that I found that works really well. Back in the day when I used to work directly for associations, I had the great opportunity to work with membership, and I loved working with chapters, and specifically I loved working with student chapters, mostly because nobody cared what I tested. I would use them. I tested a new podcast with them, and it was the way that I could test ideas with an engaged group of people who, for the most part, were already really excited about trying new things. And the sheer fact that they were part of, and I would start with the officers and ask them to share things out to the rest of the chapters. But I would look at your most engaged and the ones who are up for trying new things, and I would bring them on as like a beta test group. These are the ones who are, not afraid to try new things, the ones who embrace the fact that you want to be innovative. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to exclude people from the opportunity, but you want to show what that opportunity is. Right now, I think it's a really great time to try new things. You want to tell people that you're trying new things because it makes people feel like, safer. It makes them feel like you are trying new things that make sense. but you have to show some rationality behind it. You have to show some reasoning behind it. So before you start something new, just say why it is that you're wanting to try it and what you think the benefit would be. And then, ask if they want to be engaged. I think it's important to reach out, though, and be very mindful of who those advocates for anything new that you're trying might be. Because I don't even have to ask you. I know what it's like working with different associations, and there are definitely naysayers, right? The ones who are never going to like the thing that you create. So go and look for the ones who aren't necessarily just everything you do is perfect. Look for the ones, though, who show up. Look for the ones who want to be involved, who want to be engaged, and say, we're going to try this thing, and why you want to try it. Does that help? There's actually, I'll also say this, there's actually a framework that some people at Tecker they work with, and it's a framework that everyone can use. And there's supposed to be a blog post that's going out about it soon, but I'm trying to remember, it's the Macmillan, I'm trying to remember the name of it right now, but I can send more information to Vanessa a little bit about it, and you can look that up. I just, right now, the name of it, and it's available to anyone to use, but it's escaping me right now. It's Macmillan something, and I just can't. My mind's not there. Do you have any pro tip suggestions for avenues a supplier could best provide their clients/associations relevant to snack-sized learning? Pro tip suggestions for avenues a supplier could best provide their clients and associations relevant snack-sized learning. Let me think about that. So avenue as in like channels or avenues? Yes. So different types of channels. Yeah. I do. I mean, I think that a series of, I love video series. I think that those are really helpful. And I think you can start with that and lead to something else. Videos are great because even though they seem like they might be complicated to grab, there are different types of solutions and tools that you can use. Actually, there's something that does something similar to Gather Voices, where I think there's a free version for a certain number of minutes, and it's called Tribute. And it's created for a different type of purpose. It was created so that people could record their tributes to people or organizations for like anniversaries and things like that. Same concept as a solution like Gather Voices. And people are able to record like their best learning tip, their best, this is the smartest leadership tip I've learned. So you could do a series on leadership and ask a certain number of people, ask your board, ask your volunteer leaders, ask your chapter leaders, ask different people to weigh in with their leadership tips and create like an entire video of leadership tips. And if you want to get really creative, divide them up into different categories and release them as bite-sized learning video tips on leadership from your membership with recognized leaders in the membership. I mean, that's just off the cuff. So do you have, let's see. Yeah, tribute. Yay. I remember. Yeah. Any other questions? I love it. And I mean, and Vanessa, if somebody wants to, they can talk to me too. I mean, they can ask me questions if they like. So,
absolutely. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Kiki. Once again, you have provided us with new ways to consider how we reach, connect, and educate our members, clients, and colleagues. It's been a pleasure having you with us virtually. We miss having you in person, so I hope that at some point we do get to have you back in person when we all come back together. As I mentioned at the start of today's event, this webinar has been recorded and will be posted to SA's YouTube account in the next few days. We'll also be sharing out Kiki slides, as well as a pro tip for snack size learning tips. Coming up, I want to let everybody know that SA will be featuring its very first happy hour tomorrow at 4 p.m. We have invited people out on Facebook. So we are, doing our part, working remotely and social distancing, but that doesn't mean we need to do our work alone. So whether you're using Zoom, Dropbox, Slack, or something else, what tools are you using to stay connected to your staff members, clients, and friends? So join us for a happy hour forum tomorrow at 4 o'clock. This casual forum is where we can fill our social souls and remain connected during this crazy time. So we are encouraging you to wear your favorite fancy hat, to network, laugh, and share ideas, and raise a glass. Craft beer and wine are encouraged. Next week, we are going to feature a member forum on the COVID relief programs and the CARES guidance. This will be led by the Bonadio group, which will be held next Wednesday, April 15th at 1:30. More information is available on our Facebook page and on our website. Thank you again to everyone for participating in today's event, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Be well and stay safe out there, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.